and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, President Buhari optimistic that insurgent group Boko Haram's terrorism is coming to an end owing to their dwindling support base. Army authorities say Boko Haram leader Shekau is on the run, disguised as a woman. Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka advocates organized resistance to attacks on civilians by suspected herdsmen. And ANC leaders formally asked South African President Jacob Zuma to step down.
And on business news tonight, Nigeria's central bank governor Godwin Emefiele asked lawmakers to place a ban on unlicensed banks operating in the country.
And in sports news, UEFA Champions League returns with round of 16 first-leg clashes between Juventus and Tottenham Hotspur, and Manchester City taking on Basel.
And from Abuja, APC leaders Bola Tinubu and Bisi Akande visit President Buhari, insist APC stands a good chance of winning the 2019 elections in a transparent poll.
We start off tonight with the President's renewed optimism that the era of Boko Haram terrorism is coming to an end as a result of the narrowing of their recruitment base. President Muhammadu Buhari was optimistic today in Abuja while receiving the letter of credence to the Apostolic Nuncio of the Vatican to Nigeria, Archbishop Antonio Filipazzi, at the State House. According to President Buhari, the terrorist group has lost its appeal in its initial strongholds, coupled with a sustained onslaught by the Nigerian army. The President's hopes for a speedy end to the war on insurgency are expressed in a statement from the presidential spokesperson, Mr. Femi Adesina. It quotes President Buhari as saying, "You can't indoctrinate people who are below the age of 14 years and blow up churches, mosques, markets, and you keep shouting, 'God is great.' It's either you don't know what you're saying or you simply don't care or believe what you're saying. It's part of our success story that Boko Haram is finding it more difficult to recruit people," end of quote. He described the Catholic Church as a strong partner in Nigeria's development in view of its significant contributions to the education and health system of the country. Now, President Buhari's confidence appears to be justified with the Nigerian army authorities sending out an alert that the factional leader of the Boko Haram insurgents, Shekau, is on the run, disguised as a woman. A statement from the Director Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Sani Usman, cites credible information from arrested insurgents, indicating that Shekau has abandoned his followers and fled. The statement says, quote, "He's deliberately trying to escape the theater, disguised as a woman dressed in hijab. We gathered reliably that to avoid detection, Shekau alternates between blue and black-colored hijabs. He was last seen in a black one." According to General Usman, the efforts of Operation Lafia Dole in clearing the remnants of the insurgents through Operation Deep Punch have yielded tremendous results. The statement asked the remaining Boko Haram members to come out from hiding and lay down their arms with the assurance that they'll be treated humanely. It also asked members of the public, especially residents of Adamawa, Borno and Yobe states, to be on the lookout for Shekau and other terrorists that might disguise as women to escape, even as efforts are on to track down the fugitive terrorist leader. Now, the Nigerian military may be excited about its success in decimating the terror group Boko Haram, and the president happy that the group's membership is waning. But Amnesty International wants the trial of arrested suspects to meet international standards. The international rights group expresses its disapproval about the ongoing mass trial at Kainji in Niger State, which it says will deny individual suspects access to lawyers and interpreters where necessary. Amnesty's position is expressed through its country director, Osai Ojibo, who says the body is worried about the list of abuses by security forces in the arrest and detention of hundreds of young men and suspects without evidence. The group lauded the decision to make the trial public, but seeks fairness for all. Now, indeed, the heat of violent clashes has spread to the southwestern part of the country, where a 32-year-old farmer has been killed by suspected herdsmen in Ekiti State. Governor Ayodele Fayose has, however, appealed to the residents not to embark on reprisals, giving them the assurance that the perpetrators will be fished out. Now, this is coming a few days after the killing of 2 people and a police officer in Oyo State by suspected cattle rustlers. Our correspondent Oluwa Shonibare reports.
The war horn has sounded, and when this happens, trouble brews. And indeed it is, in Ekiti State, where a farmer has reportedly been killed by suspected herdsmen. Angry faces everywhere, from traditional rulers to the smallest child. The entire community has trooped out in protest over the killing, brandishing placards and guns. They're not fazed by the presence of the security agents. Only the arrival of the governor calms their nerves. As he comforts his people, Governor Fayose assures them that the law will certainly take its course. He also hints that the anti-grazing law will be tweaked to protect all stakeholders.
If you kill anybody as a result of this grazing issue, you have to face the law. But if you equally kill cows by provocation, act of provocation, and you take laws into your hands too, you have 1 year in jail.
The Commissioner of Police says proactive steps are being taken by all security agencies to fish out the killers.
Myself, the brigade commander, and the director assistants, we are going to sit down along with our operation officers. We'll sit down and see how we can deploy our personnel to 3 places so that to at least prevent the occurrence of this incident. So we are doing our best.
As the Ekiti Police Command grapples to unravel the perpetrators, their counterparts in Oyo State are also on the trail of suspected cattle rustlers, wanted for the killing of 2 people and 1 of their own. This man is lucky to be alive. He escaped with machete cuts. As the team ransacked the huts of the herders for clues, the police commissioner says investigation is in full swing.
So we are visiting the scene of crime, like I said, and we're going to start investigation. We have started investigation. We have arrested 4 people. We're going to arrest more. We are getting information here and there. So when we go to Ibadan, we'll put it together and make sure that we get these culprits.
That pockets of violence connected to herdsmen and farmers' clashes appear to be spreading at an alarming rate across the country is not the only problem. The other worrisome trend is how those who are meant to protect are being taken out, which leaves a lot of questions hanging over the federal government's ability to find a lasting solution to the problem. Oluwa Shonibare, Channels Television News.
In the meantime, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka is joining the calls for a permanent solution to the herdsman crisis across the country. He wants a decisive action from the relevant authorities to stop the attacks on innocent civilians. Professor Soyinka, who spoke at a press conference in Lagos, advocated an organized resistance to the menace, describing the killer herdsmen as the new breed of Boko Haram and internal colonialists. The Nobel laureate says he is not happy with what he describes as the body language of the government in handling the matter. He also condemned the proposal for the establishment of cattle colonies, insisting that ranching is the preferred option to resolving the crisis.
They are regarded as the 4th deadliest terrorist group in the world on the Global Terrorism Index, with less than 100 recorded killings in 2013. A year after, it's moved over 1,000. The armed herdsmen, with increasing rate of killings, are said to have killed hundreds of innocent civilians yearly. A matter of huge national concern, Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka describes the group a deadly group that must be curtailed.
I'm talking about a phenomenon of internal occupation, colonization, which has been going on for at least 8 years.
Professor Wole Soyinka is not happy with the handling of the deadly herders, but he believes the solution must be practical. First, he said people must defend themselves from these marauders.
Whether they're taken to bows and arrows or cudgels is irrelevant. The important thing is the consciousness of a need for organized resistance against the incursion of cows and their leaders. Will be to ensure that any time they see an armed herdsman, they report to the nearest police. If by a certain time that group of armed herdsmen are not disarmed, then these organizations will move and disarm them.
He also gives some practical steps, but he advises that they must be carried out quickly.
We need state police. We need to decentralize the police. The setting of branches, for me, just has got to be accelerated.
Professor Soyinka believes the government of the day has its positives in terms of performance, but for him, some errors committed are unnecessary. He described them as unforced errors. When Professor Soyinka was asked what he would tell the president should he see him today, here is what he said.
Mr. President, I think you are under a trance. The sooner he gets out of that trance, the better for the nation. Yeah, I think that's what I would say to him. So many unforced errors are going on.
Shekau Kimaloe, reporting for Channels Television News.
Now, the federal government, on its part, is also seeking to address the incidence of bloodletting with the announcement of the policy framework and national action plan for preventing and countering violent extremism. According to the National Security Advisor, retired Major General Babagana Monguno, the war against extremism and criminality is not just for the federal government alone. He says the policy aims to institutionalize Nigeria's counter-extremism efforts using a whole government, whole society approach. General Monguno explains that the 3-year policy and plan will provide a clearer policy and environment that addresses peace, security and development.
6 months after President Muhammadu Buhari signed a presidential directive authorizing a policy framework for fighting extremism, the policy framework and national action plan for preventing and countering violent extremism in Nigeria has been launched. The National Security Advisor, who is saddled with developing the policy, explains the reason for the policy.
The policy framework and national action plan rests on 4 major objectives. These are: 1, strengthening institutions and coordination in preventing and countering violent extremism. 2, strengthening the rule of law, access to justice and human rights. 3, engaging communities and building resilience. And 4, integrating strategic communication in preventing and countering violent extremism programs.
But how will these objectives be achieved? The National Security Advisor and the Minister of Information and Culture explained.
I wish to highlight some of the immediate steps we are required to take going forward. All relevant ministries, departments, and agencies are required to include in their annual budgets preventing and countering violent extremism tasks for implementation as identified in Part 3 of the National Action Plan.
Our administration is engaging in dialogue with different key stakeholders in order to find possible and lasting solutions to the issue of herder-farmer conflicts, which is one of the security challenges we face today.
A steering committee has been set up to ensure the success of the policy. Amaka Okafo, Channels Television News.